Stalking, the act of willfully and repeatedly harassing another person in circumstances that would cause fear, injury, or death because of implied threats. In the world of the internet and social media, this is an act that has become easier than ever to put into motion. To the pursuer, this act is satisfying because they feel in control. They know what actions a person may or may not take. They know the time and the place the victim will be, and in some severe cases, every single transaction that takes place in their bank account. The victim, unknowingly at first, continues to live their life as they always have, until the undeniable feeling of being watched continuously invades their mind. Psychologically speaking, it is common for the victim to feel anxiety, depression, and most of all, fear. The story of Haunting Ground touches not only on that psychological horror, but also on other subjects such as sexism and torture. And in today's video, I wanted to explore those themes and how their execution can transform a video game into an unforgettable experience. The game begins with the main character by the name of Fiona Belly asleep in a large cage. A noticeable disfigured man goes to reach for her, but is scared away by her compulsive movement as what is seemingly a nightmare causes her to awaken. What makes this all the more terrifying is that the only clothing she has is a bedsheet around her. This would add a heightened sense of fear to anyone in a situation like this due to a basic human need being stripped away. As she ventures away from that room, she enters another one, in which a ticking clock provides the only sound. And then suddenly, a woman appears behind her. Fiona tries to address the situation, but the woman's blank stare makes the clock ticking even more ominous. What really makes this scene is the use of silence, or lack of.
Wait, don't go. Excuse me, but where are we? And how did I get here?
As in a way, that ticking clock turns into a torturous chant when a person that could help you in this situation is void of any empathy. In this next scene, as Fiona sheds her bed sheets for questionably provided clothing, we see that there is something going on with the picture that sits on the wall in front of her. This scene in particular is meant to evoke a feeling of disgust in the player, as once more this person we know so little about seems to be treated like a prisoner in a cage with no privacy. The game has just begun, but we already start to feel as though the beings around her see her more like an object than a human being. This is supported by the very end of this scene. The camera zooms in on Fiona's stomach of all things, and after it zooms in even more on the painting. While this does come off as bizarre at first, after beating the game and seeing this scene again, it does an excellent job of foreshadowing. Moments later, minus Fiona's dramatic fall, the game shifts its focus from quiet and unsettling to frantic and stressful. In Haunting Ground, Fiona is chased multiple times throughout the game, and each of her pursuers want her for their own selfish reasons. From a gaming aspect, this mechanic can be quite annoying as it forces the player to take scenic routes that delay story progression. But from a psychological standpoint, it does a wonderful job of keeping the experience suspenseful, as the contrast between the intense chasing versus the eerily quiet afterwards is amplified. Oftentimes than not, what makes a horror game or one based around playing with the mind much more of an impactful experience is the soundscape, and the developers did a great job of setting up the soundscape from the very beginning. Though Fiona herself is somewhat defenseless, along the way she does gain a companion by the name of Huey. Not only is Huey a good boy most of the time, but he can protect Fiona from those who wish to do her harm. While in the grand scheme of things, Huey is just a dog, I do find it interesting that Fiona's only point of contact is him. And it seems to the residents of the strange castle that Fiona is not seen as much different than that of Huey. This becomes a further point of importance as the endings of the game are also tied to how Huey was treated throughout it, as her life is directly tied to the humanity she expresses. This can pose as a challenge to some players, as given the circumstance, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Should a player fail to uphold their humanity, then by the end of the game, they are treated with the worst possible ending. In this particular ending, Fiona is sat in the same room she found her clothes in at the very beginning of the game. As she sits there, Ricardo caresses her face, and slowly we see the camera pan down with his hand. Fiona wakes from her slumber and then begins to laugh uncontrollably. Not only is that laugh disturbing, but we also see she is pregnant. Fiona's mental and physical state at this point can only lead to one conclusion as to what Ricardo has done to her. The theme of sexism runs its course throughout the game, and this ending seals it. From the very start of the game, Fiona is objectified with lots of attention focused on her body. The opening scene of the game on the title screen alone hints towards this before a player has even began the game, as it focuses on Fiona's form and her bare skin. Then with her journey throughout the game, we also see suggestive camera angles and over-the-top physics. I will admit that I found those physics funny at first, as it seems extremely bizarre to exaggerate such detail in a survival horror game. But by the end of the game, that focus becomes all too real, as Fiona is seen as nothing more than a child bearer. Should the player maintain their humanitarian status, they will not be treated to an ending as disturbing as that one. But the mental torture is all the same. There is something agonizing about this game, and I do not mean just the controls. It is the eerie silence followed by the hectic chase. Or the uneasy feeling a player experiences as they close one door and open the next, as on the other side of that door could be an item to help you or a person who wants to hurt you. Pair this up with the innate defenselessness of Fiona herself, and this torment becomes all too real. While Huey can serve as a line of protection, it is the limited actions Fiona can take that helps to keep that feeling relevant. There's just something about not being able to protect oneself throughout the game that causes distress in the player, and it comes in waves. In conclusion, the themes displayed in Haunting Ground make the game quite a fascinating experience to any player patient enough to make it through the game. While I would not say that this game is a masterpiece, it does have good aspects about it. While it is easy to compare this game to others in its genre, such as Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, or the Clock Tower series, the importance of this game is in its diversity. It reflects a time in the gaming industry before the production value for games became astronomical and creativity was traded for profit. Though its overall reception at the time was lukewarm, I can see why the game has gathered attention over the years.